It's nothing, I'm not gender biased in any way, but the women cops seem to go over the top sometimes. But, I get there's plenty of men who do too. It's not really a gender thing, but there's a certain sense of Karen copness that goes on sometimes with some of these women. It's really strange. Not always. We had an episode where we saw a woman handle herself very well in the face of someone who was really rude with her. So, again, but there's just a certain vibe. It's a certain vibe that comes from the Karen cop thing. We're back again with the PEM podcast. That's pragmatic ego management or mitigation, like both words. Had an interesting week. We're getting geared up for the week of trade shows in the first week of December. So that's going to be really big job for us. A lot of effort, a lot of money went into it. So I've been doing that all week. Watched an interesting movie this week that had an impact on me. The movie's called Rob Peace, and it's a tragic tale. I don't want to do any spoiler alerts or anything, but about a very talented young man, and he is trying to change not only his life, but the life of, but the circumstance of his entire family, especially his father. And there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and it's based on a true story. Hard to say when you watch a movie, right, and the more aware I become, the more you wonder, well, how close did they come to the truth with the movie, right? The movie presents an interesting perspective of a very smart guy who has great intentions, but he's involved because of probably the neighborhood, probably even because of his father and things like that. He's involved with illicit trade of kinds. I don't think, for all his intelligence, he's an intelligent guy. And this kind of shows you how there's no books for this stuff. It's kind of a quote from Carlito's Way, old movie for many of you who probably haven't seen that movie. I don't know, it depends on what generation you are. Towards the end of the movie, the attorney Kleinfeld has kind of crossed over from being an attorney to being a gangster, and Al Pacino's character kind of lets him know that, and he's like, there's no books for that. It's not the same as being an attorney, and you don't get too many shots at making mistakes. You make a mistake that's deadly, that could be it. And it's interesting, but there's a quote in the movie that I thought was really great by a professor at Yale. And she says, I forget how the quote actually starts, but she says, when you meet complications, make a change and document your results. And I thought that was a great quote for all of life, because what I'm seeing with people in all kinds of areas, whether it's financial, whether it's personal relationship, whether it's mental health, or even physical, injuries and physical injury rehab, a lot of times what got me in trouble with injuries was just not knowing anything else. So going to the gym, way back in the day, this was before all the information. We have a lot more information now around physical fitness and injury rehab, and so much information now that YouTube has provided from people who are very knowledgeable we didn't have back then. And so I only knew how to do certain types of exercises, going in there bench pressing, squatting, deadlifting, doing things, and ignoring pains, and not making adjustments. And I've learned now later in life, when I start to feel a certain pain or something, I make an adjustment, I make a change, I see what the results are. And that is really a powerful thing to do in any aspect of your life. And I think many of us, we don't know any better. For instance, you might not know any better, and let's say you are a street pharmaceutical rep, right? And that's what you're doing to make money, and that's all you know, and you just get stuck in that rut. And how many people are in prison because of them getting stuck in something where it's like, it's all I know, and so I just keep doing what I know, and the results keep ending up being negative. And yet, I just don't know anything else, so I just keep going. Same thing with the injuries. I don't know anything else, I just know how to do certain types of squats, or maybe deadlift, or I know how to do certain things, and I just keep doing that even though I'm feeling the pain. And guess what? The pain gets worse and worse, the injury gets worse, and yet I just keep doing that because I don't know anything else, and instead of changing something and going outside of my comfort zone and trying something new and doing something else, I just keep going back to the same thing. And I think that's really a big part of being practical. That's what I've noticed about myself. And when I tell people, I say, you know, I'm actually a very practical person. I'm very pragmatic. When I see something doesn't work, I will stop doing that. I will change. I will make a change. Now, seeing that it doesn't work, sometimes even that takes a moment before you go, oh, wait a second. You know, or diagnosing what part of a string or a grouping of techniques and tactics, which part of that is the problem. It can be complicated. It's not that easy. So there is a great deal of awareness that goes into this, but it's something that I think is super important to bring to the table, to talk about being willing to try new things and do something differently, especially in the face of meeting opposition and meeting some sort of brick wall or failure issue. Don't just keep doing the same things. See if you get different results with changes that you make. Okay, we're going to get into these videos. Let's see what we got this time.
Excuse me?
You can stay right there.
I don't need to approach you?
No, you can stay right back there. You can walk back that way.
Ma'am.
You can walk back that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Keep walking back that way.
Can you de-escalate a little bit? Because I feel like you're trying to...
Is this Sean?
Authority over me.
Sounds like this is
I'm
Sean
not.
Reyes.
I'm speaking to you in my normal voice.
You have no authority over me. Okay?
Yeah, this is Sean.
Actually, I do.
I'm in a public building. I'm
And
conducting
they're
lawful
asking you
business.
to leave.
Yeah, it
I'm
is.
conducting lawful business.
I love him. He's great.
It's a
Yes,
lie.
they did.
He's
They
awesome.
did not ask me to
They
leave.
asked you to leave, and they said that you
I'm
were no
conducting
longer
business.
allowed to be
I'm
here.
conducting
So
business.
therefore, you need to leave the location.
I'm conducting business. I'm doing a Freedom of Information Act request.
They asked you to leave. And
So you're
that-
saying, can I get a supervisor here? Hi. I'm conducting lawful business. I'm an independent journalist, exercising my freedom of press right.
Okay.
It's a right, not a privilege. Freedom
Damn
of
right.
press. This
Damn
is a
right.
public building. You guys have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 officers here, 6 including
Can we
yourself,
pause real
so
quick?
It's a complete.
So guys, I don't know if some of you, or many of you may not have seen the last episode we did last week, but I want you to notice the delivery of Sean Reyes here. I know this is Sean Reyes. I watch him. I haven't been keeping up with him as much lately. I've been really busy, but I can tell from his voice. Can also tell by his delivery. Do you see how calm he is? Do you see how he's not, at least so far, and I've very rarely, if ever, seen him call anyone a name or push his chest out. You know, sometimes he'll use the word educate in a way that's a little bit needly, but ultimately he's very, very good at what he does. And I appreciate the way he delivers things far better than what we saw in that last episode from last week. This is, in my opinion, a much better way to go. I think he could even improve if he was a little more in certain areas, maybe. You know, and I'm not the funniest guy either. Some of us just aren't natural comedians. Some of us are just heavy from life. I used to be funnier when I was a kid, I think. Life got heavy and I got more serious. You know, but trying to find ways to bring humor into the situation, but also holding your ground and also delivering. But I like how he's very, you notice there's not a lot of ego in the way he delivers what he's saying here. I really want to point that out, guys, because he's faced with, that woman rubs me the wrong way when she's like, okay, you can walk back the other way. Like, what? What are you talking about? You see, these people think that they have this right to just order you around because they've got this suit on, this costume that we've given them, that they can just, you know, order you around and do whatever the hell they please without being restricted by things like the Constitution. And so that takes a lot of skill, guys, to not really react to her. She really had a toxic, caustic, ego, authoritarian vibe to her, and Sean didn't respond to that at all, as you can see. He stood his ground. I really like that, so I wanted to point that out. Let's keep going.
Completely uncalled for. I'm trying to conduct business.
Okay. What is your business? What are you trying to
I'm doing a
just
Freedom of
told you.
Information request, which is a law,
Okay.
and I'm also gathering content for a story.
Okay. Well, right now, we were called here by the people who work in this office building.
Okay.
They are concerned for their safety and their well-being, that there is somebody in here, they've asked you to step out and...
Their
leave and
safety
step
and
out.
well-being.
They did not. I have it on camera. They did not ask me to leave.
Okay, well, that's what they're relaying to us.
Okay,
so
it's a
that
lie.
is why we are here right now. I'm not going to dispute truth or fact right now. I'm going to tell you that is why we're here right now. We are going to conduct our investigation.
That's fine.
Okay?
Conduct whatever
I'm going to
investigation you
ask
like.
for your ID, because we do need to know who we're speaking with right now.
You can ask for my
As part-
ID.
Yes, I
So,
am.
in
As part
order,
of our investigation.
okay, in order for me, I just want to I listen to you, so I would ask you just listen to me. I don't need to assist you in your investigation. I don't work for the police department. I don't want to assist you in your investigation into me for whatever reason. Do you have a crime that you suspect me of committing? Do you have reasonable,
We are
articulable
on
suspicion?
an investigation of
Do you have reasonable, articulable suspicion I've committed a crime?
We're not saying that you committed a crime. We are here to investigate a complaint.
That's not what he asked.
So if you're saying that I haven't committed a crime, then I don't have to provide you my ID lawfully, so I'm not going to.
Okay, then I'm going to ask you to step out of this building and to leave this building.
I'm conducting business, ma'am.
Okay, at this point you were asked that you were not welcome here anymore, and we were going to ask you to
But
leave.
you can't stop somebody from recording. You can't stop somebody
I
from
never asked you
gathering.
to stop recording. That is not what I've asked you to do. I asked
You're
you
asking me to leave a public building,
yes,
ma'am.
we're no
Can I get your
longer
name?
in this building now. My name is Sergeant Mayer.
Sergeant Mayer, and your badge number?
Yes, 456.
456. And are you telling me that if I don't leave this building, you're going to arrest me?
I'm telling you right now that you're going to leave this building. Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, but I just
You
want
are-
to know.
I'm not going to argue with you back and forth. Let's step outside.
Are you an attorney, sir?
This is actually our
I'm
house
the
right
town
here.
supervisor. I am an attorney, but I'm not here in that capacity.
Okay.
I just walk down the hall.
Sir,
so something
maybe
happens.
I can speak to you and we can come to a better understanding here.
Well, I'm not going to speak to you while you're filming me. You're free to film me, but I'm not going to have a discussion on camera with you.
I'm an independent journalist. Yeah, but you're violating but your officers, you're the supervisor, so I just want to let you know, you're opening yourself up to civil, and you said you're a lawyer, you're opening yourself to civil litigation. All I'm doing is
Okay, so
peacefully filming.
pause
I'm
again.
not bothering anybody.
So what he's doing here is very much like it's very chess. It's very chess oriented the way he's doing this. He's moving his pieces into place. It's very much like a jiu-jitsu setup or something like this. What he's going to do now is set them up to open themselves up to civil litigation, and Sean Reyes will sue. He's definitely someone who backs it up. He's got the following now. He's the one that developed with other people, but developed the app, the Attorney Shield. So, Sean's got some resources. He's been to jail a few times. He's definitely fought and won cases, and he will sue them. So he's looking for legal precedent to sue them here, and he's seeing if they're going to step into that trap. And I like that, and that's also why he's very calm and very cool here, because he knows the fight isn't in this ego battle, butting heads with these people. What he's doing is setting them up for the real battle, which would be in court with, legal precedent and standing in historical case law. And then he's got good representation as well. So it's hard to say right now. They probably don't know who he is and what type of danger they're in, because he's definitely won cases, and I don't know. I don't think he usually pockets the money. He does different things with the money. Sometimes he's given it to local communities. He's done different things. So Sean's really like what he does. So I wanted to point that out, that this is all chess right now. This is all very strategic. And I think that's what's important when you're dealing with authority and tyrants in general. Understand, and tyrants are in all sorts of areas, and depending on what the different area you're dealing with, the rules are different, and the pressure points and impingement points are different. So understanding those. What's nice about legal situations is it's pretty well structured. Legal system isn't perfect, we know that. There's a lot of problems with our legal system, but there is still a great deal of structure, and we do understand the application of constitutional law with, in this situation. So they're requiring an ID. They can't articulate, a suspicion of a crime being committed. They don't have to, by the way. That isn't necessary that they articulate it to him, but if they can't articulate it later in court, to a satisfying degree, then they'll be held liable. So that is what's going on here. Is then do they ask him to leave a public building, violating his right to the First Amendment and violating his right to conduct legal business within this building? That's all part of what he's setting up here, and we'll see if they're stupid enough to fall in that trap. But yeah, that's why he's also able to keep his cool, because he knows the game he's playing. It's a much bigger game than just getting into some ego yelling match with these tyrants here. All right, let's keep going.
I have to do a FOIL request with the town clerk's office. I have official business here. I'm exercising my constitutional right. That's all I'm doing peacefully. And you're going to kick me out of a public building?
I'm going to ask you to give me 1 minute.
Okay, great.
The attorney's like,
You guys
whoa, wait a
don't have something
second.
better to do? 1, 2, 3, 4,
The
5,
attorneys are
6,
funny because they
7,
know.
8
cops.
officers for one man with a camera. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not nefarious. I don't have any ill intent here. I don't understand.
Yeah,
What's
where's
big
the
deal?
weapons? Where's the craziness? What do we need?
Excuse me? Am I being detained?
You are being asked to stay here for our investigation.
Am I being detained?
Yeah.
You are temporarily being detained as
Okay.
as we commit
Okay.
our investigation.
Unlawful detainment.
Unlawful detainment, damn right.
It is an unlawful. You have
Oh,
to
yeah.
learn the law. If you're going to uphold the law, You took an oath to the Constitution.
Yeah.
Freedom of press is part of the Constitution. You have to, if you're going to uphold it, you have to learn it. This is an illegal detainment. You can't detain me unless you suspect that I'm committing a crime. This is all things you should have learned in the academy. And as a supervisor, I think that's, you should really know. You cannot detain somebody legally without you having suspected me of committing a crime. This is ridiculous. Thank you. Can I get your name, sir? Can I get Lieutenant Dolan? Thank you, Lieutenant.
Lieutenant
You
Dolan
guys
just
are
moving
dismissed. Please don't detain me unlawfully anymore.
on. Oh, look at him, how he did that. He did it that was interesting.
No.
If he's not doing anything illegal or dangerous or disruptive,
Exactly.
that's fine with me.
It's my right to be in this building.
Yes.
As long as he
This is a taxpayer's
follows the
building.
rules, then
This is the taxpayer's building.
Yeah.
thank you very much.
And by the way, she did detain me. Just so you know. Just so you know, it's on camera. She did detain me.
Well, I'm not going to
So that's an unlawful detainment.
I'm not debating with you. but-
He's scared. That
Great.
attorney
Take care,
did
guys.
not like the position he was put in there. It's awesome. Yeah, so the delivery is amazing. Sean is someone who I respect a great deal about how he delivers his message. He stays very calm. He does not insult people. He doesn't bring ego into it. In this case, people may have learned a lesson here, I have to say. He was respectful of everyone. He didn't call anyone names. I mean, I would hope, and it doesn't mean that every time that someone's going to learn a lesson. It doesn't mean that those cops learned something or not. I think maybe not all of them did. The woman that was, it's funny about the female cops, guys. Nothing, I'm not gender biased in any way, but the women cops seem to go over the top sometimes. But, I guess there's plenty of men who do too. It's not really a gender thing, but there's a certain sense of Karen copness that goes on sometimes with some of these women. It's really strange. Not always. We had an episode where we saw a woman handle herself very well in the face of someone who was really rude with her. So, again, not, but there's just a certain vibe. It's just a certain vibe that comes from the Karen cop thing, and that was definitely that woman with the mask that started off like, you can walk the other way. Whoa, like, who are you ordering around like I'm your dog, like I'm your farm animal? It doesn't work that way, And Sean did a great job. I always love how he does it. He does it, in my opinion, really almost spot on. Doesn't bring ego into the equation whatsoever, delivers his message, stands his ground, and does a true audit. I think that's exactly what First Amendment auditors should do. He's doing a real audit, and he's bringing consequence to the table if they decide to violate his rights. And I think that attorney sensed it, that tall man with the mask on definitely sensed that he was stepping into dangerous territory. You could see it because he could sense the legal structuring, the legal strategy that was being set up for those cops and for himself. He could sense it because he's an attorney. He knew, we're getting into territory here that's dangerous, and we might have to pay and face consequences. So, you could see his discomfort with where that was headed. And then that was really interesting how the lieutenant just kind of nonchalantly, that happened so quickly. He's like, all right, everybody, and then just kept walking. Like, he didn't even want to be seen. That was awesome how that happened. That was cool. Guaranteed that lieutenant knew the law. He understood, and he didn't need to learn any lessons that day. He didn't even want to be associated. In fact, I think he was a bit embarrassed, perhaps, that these officers had behaved the way they did. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wishful thinking there. But ultimately, I think we'd see a range of people thinking that through. I think there was a high degree of probability that at least a few of those officers actually learned something that day that maybe they took with them. And that has a lot to do with the delivery and not calling them tyrants and cowards and berating them and making them feel small. And that's something that Sean, I hardly ever see him do that. I've seen Sean be really mistreated. So in some cases, he's been a little more aggressive, and I think rightfully so in certain circumstances where the cops are just so out of line, it's insane. But he does a great job of delivering that message. I think that's the way to do it. Very little, if any, ego involved in Sean's delivery there. Like that a lot.
Going through a really tumultuous divorce, and I don't want to be on anything.
Your divorce?
So I don't get any permission to be on your phone.
I didn't ask you anything about your personal life, and I wish you wouldn't have told me.
I know, but I don't want to be on film. I'm not
standing on a public
consenting to
street.
being on your phone. I can call the police.
That's up to you. That's ridiculous. That's up to you.
Yeah, call the police.
Now I know why you're getting divorced.
Oh my God, you need to get out.
Yeah, okay.
Get out. Hello.
How are we doing?
Good, how are
Doing good, thanks.
What's going on today? What's going on today, guys?
Just out taking some video.
Taking video.
Enjoying the day. Yeah.
Okay.
Love to hear it.
We got a call from some of the management here.
Oh, I know. That's why I'm waiting for you.
Okay, I figured you guys knew what was going on. They're saying that you're yelling at employees and.
I've asked him multiple times. He's like been in my face with the camera, and my guests feel uncomfortable.
This is public property.
So they can just record anyone coming in out anywhere.
They can sit here.
Teachable moment.
You know, you don't have to be rude.
Why don't you just admit you were wrong and we can like park being friends?
I asked you to leave.
There's no reason to be upset.
Let's not have this.
No, it is because
Oh, I'm trying to have a civil, nice conversation.
You haven't
I'm not allowed to have a civil. Sure, I have. You're making everything up. You said it's on 2 cameras.
Yeah,
I literally
she
asked
did.
you nicely to
Lied
stop.
right
All right.
there,
So do you
I
want to
think.
end it and be friends?
But they are allowed to say you're on public property and
Right.
videotape, right?
But doesn't mean what they're
Just
doing
like
is
our body
right.
cams are videotaping everything when we contact you.
Wow,
They're gonna
she's
videotape.
good.
They're more than
This
that's
is
their
good.
right. Now I understand it makes you
what we
feel
wanna see.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. I can understand that. We have that same thing when people videotape us. It can make you feel uncomfortable, but it is not against
But let's
the law.
have human decency and just move
Sure.
along.
Yeah, let's have human decency. You practice what you preach.
Oh my gosh, this is what's wrong with
I know. I'm not allowed to have an opinion. Everything you say is right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Were you guys harassing anybody?
No, not at all. Matter of fact, we were having a very nice conversation with these folks here.
Okay.
Not harassing anybody.
You're not doing anything wrong.
We've been walking around all afternoon, having nothing but wonderful interactions with everybody. I was having a nice conversation with these folks. Matter of fact, I own my channel. I told them I'd give them my channel before I left. So we're not looking for any issues with anybody. And I appreciate you guys handling it the way I expect you would.
Sure.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
you guys have a good night.
All right, thank you. You too. Have a good evening.
Yeah, so that nice to see the upholding of the Constitution, right, by these cops. So the woman cop there, opposite of the Karen cop, total different attitude. So you're right. Yeah, great opposing view there of someone upholding the law in the proper way, which is nice. The situation where people don't want to be filmed in public, right? You're filmed everywhere. You're filmed going through, stoplights. You're filmed walking in and out of stores. You're filmed everywhere, constantly, all the time. You don't have an expectation of privacy in public. It seems to me that's just a triggering of someone's ego. So it's because the fact that they're actually aware of you holding the phone up. And in that situation, like for me, I think there is a way to maybe address that depending on what it is. So she's not really a city employee or a government employee. So for me, I'd be like, okay, fine. Yeah, I don't need to film you. Fine. We're done here. Go back inside, whatever. And I think there's, it depends on what the story is that you're trying to gather. If the story is about that particular, cafe or coffee shop or whatever it is, and it's really about that, they can ask you to leave, so he can still film out front. And if it's about something going on with the place, and he just really is there in a press capacity to gather a story or journalistic capacity to gather a story, he's within his rights to stand out there on the street. And maybe it needs to be a little more confrontational because he is trying to gather potentially, some sort of story specific to that business. And that is what it is. But in the case where it's just kind of more general and he's just exercising his rights, and then you got some Karen comes out, I don't, it's again one of those things where I completely disagree with the woman who comes out and she's getting the divorce. It's so funny that she's mentioning her divorce. What does your divorce have to do with anything? It's so weird, right? You're dealing with someone who's, it starts to be shades of mental health, honestly, shades of mental health issues with people. The woman's got a mental health issue to a certain degree, to even bring that up. Like, okay, I'm sure it's challenging. Maybe the divorce is a big problem, whatever, but it just doesn't, it's not really appropriate for the interaction. And I think it suffices to just go, hey, I really don't want to be filmed. I'm going to go back inside. If you don't want to be filmed, don't walk up to cameras. This is something that Sean says all the time. I love, the last guy, Sean Reyes, that had that interaction with those cops in the previous video. That's something he says all the time. If you don't want to be filmed, why are you walking up to the camera and having an interaction with me? Don't walk up to me and start speaking to me when you see I have a camera in my hand or on my person somewhere. If you don't want to be filmed, it doesn't make sense. Now, we don't see what happened before, but I'm assuming maybe they walked inside the coffee shop or cafe and were asked to leave, which is within the business's right to ask you to leave their private business. So, at that point, they're on the sidewalk, and it is what it is. You can't really do anything from there. But then why come outside and then you want to have what you're trying to do at that point, what that woman is trying to do, in my opinion, she's become a tyrant at that point, and she wants to put her foot down about where these people can film in public and not filming their patrons to their, established business or whatever. And sorry, thankfully, we do have a constitution, and there is a balancing of kind of the social structure and power where you don't have that power to say that. Too bad. Freedom is scary. Deal with it, as John Bryant's saying at the end of his videos on the Civil Rights Attorney's channel. I love it. It's true. There's things about freedom that are uncomfortable, and that's too fucking bad. So, and I want to keep it that way myself. For those of you who don't want to keep it that way, we disagree, and I will do everything in my power to make sure we keep as much freedom as possible out here, which, in my opinion, has been diminishing ever since I've been alive, and probably has been diminishing since before that because of the nature of big government and constant, more and more laws being brought on the books. So I would like to slow or reverse that process if at all possible. And, your feelings, the safety of your feelings, see, safety is the issue. The safety of your feelings don't consider into that equation whatsoever. Your feelings are at a public level, when we talk about public freedoms and things like that, are not the public's problem. They're your problem. And, we can treat people with compassion and empathy, absolutely, but you don't get to, out of the basis of your feelings, change the laws of the land to fit whatever's convenient for you. That's not the way that works. I would be sensitive to someone, I think, but it depends. If people want to be rude and domineering and then even tyrannical, then yeah, I get why you wouldn't be so accommodating anymore. But I don't know. That gets difficult within the discussion of pragmatic ego mitigation or management, and that, now you get into this kind of aspect of how to manage someone's ego in that way. And ego management is very, very difficult because it requires this feeding of someone else's ego at the expense of your own, and then setting them up for a lesson. The problem with some of the statements this gentleman was making was that they weren't in that vein, so then he's sprinkling in the opportunity of resentment. And so he's not going to, it's not, teaching that Karen anything, it's teaching her to resent him and probably resent the system, and then probably vote in some direction that would be a socialist, strange way of reducing our freedoms, which I would completely disagree with. But that's where that might lead because, hey, I see why you're getting divorced now, statements like that. I get why you say it's funny, right? Again, with the entertainment, it's kind of funny, but I don't think it's effective at getting that woman to respect our constitutional rights and look at this from a place of, increasing self-awareness and consideration for the public domain and why laws are the way they are. I don't think that works that way. So delivery is really important, and I think in those circumstances you have to try to make people feel like they're very important and that their feelings are very important and that you very much feel for their pain, and then somehow bring it around to be like, but I have a duty here, and I will do my best not to film you, but this is part of this is the laws of the land for a reason, because freedom of the First Amendment is extremely important. It's number one for a reason. So, but yeah, delivery, it's always coming down to that for me. I don't think that guy's at the level of Sean Reyes. Sean's a little higher level, if you ask me. But again, it takes almost a saint-like figure to not respond to people who have these certain types of entitled attitudes. It can be difficult to really, and that's the game. The game is controlling one's own ego first. Stalking the self first is the term, and takes a great deal of awareness to do it. All right, let's see what's next.
Woman is in a rollover crash. She's trapped in her car and stopped breathing. A stranger stopped to help, and it cost him his freedom.
He saved my life.
How serious was this crash?
It was very serious.
They thought he was going to die.
Yes, sir. And it took 7 hours for surgeons to put all my spinal cord back together, and then they fused it together with metal rods.
Do you still feel lucky?
I don't feel lucky. I feel blessed.
Blessed?
Blessed.
Why?
I drive that road every day. I've never seen Mr. Rick, but for that day, for our paths to cross, just so he could save my life, I feel blessed.
That's right. Rick Rickerson has been on hundreds of rescues as a career firefighter. But this time, the retired chief was the first responder.
It opened her airway, and her mouth was full of blood. And I cleared the blood again, and it was probably another 45 seconds before the second breath. And somewhere in that point between the second and third breath, that's when I heard, whose truck is this? He said, I need you to move your truck. And I looked at my patient, I looked back at him, and I said, I'm not leaving this patient. He turned sideways and he said, sir, I said I want this truck moved.
The man there in plain clothes is Georgia State Patrol Sergeant Scott Jeter, an instructor at the State Police Academy. About to place the retired firefighter in handcuffs seconds after he saved Becca's life.
I think I remember when this happened.
Rickerson watched the life flight helicopter take off while handcuffed in the back of the trooper's car. Hours in the Pike County Jail.
What were you charged with?
Obstruction of a law enforcement officer.
You weren't rewarded with anything but a pair of handcuffs.
I was rewarded by the hug from that lady.
Yeah, I think I remember when that happened. The choice of words is interesting. Remember what old Rick Rickerson said there? The officer says to him, sir, I want this truck moved. The I want, right? There's the ego right there. You can see it. And I don't know that there's any other option there than what he did. This is where it gets difficult, right? So you got someone who's dying, and this cop's only concern is his egoic satisfaction of ordering someone around. That's insanity. I'd like to know what the outcome was. You said who got fired?
I think the police officer.
Oh, good. I sure hope so, because that's what needs to happen. That type of officer does not need to be, quote unquote, serving the public. So, I don't know that Rick could have done anything differently. He's dealing with someone who's dying. It is the most important thing there is at that point. There is nothing else more important. And unless the officer wants to then become physical, which would have been insane, right? I could have seen that happening, though. Thankfully, that didn't happen. And Rick there was able to save that woman's life. But yeah, you can see it just in the choice of words. Sir, I want this truck moved. It's all about your ego. That's all that's important in that moment. And I don't think that situation is really tough, because I don't think there's a whole lot of opportunity for de-escalation of the officer's ego. It's this woman's dying. I got to do what I got to do. And I can't even really pay attention to you right now because we're just trying to keep this woman alive. Yeah, that's a bad flavor, right? Cop like that, just gross, kind of. That someone's ego would be more important than a woman who's clearly in very serious jeopardy of losing her life, and someone who's clearly trained to deal with that. There to, aid and possibly, save her life, which she did, and then you got this tyrant. So I sure hope he was fired, but I don't see any way to comment on what Rick could have done that would have changed it, because he was dealt a really tough hand there. I think he did the best he could.
We are seeing widespread condemnation of this neo-Nazi march in Columbus, Ohio over the weekend. The White House this morning calling it a sickening display. The NBC affiliate in Columbus reported that this small group marched through part of that city on Saturday afternoon. They were carrying black flags with red swastikas and wearing red masks, chanting slurs into a bullhorn.
Wow! Wow! Wow!
White House spokesperson Andrew Bates, in a statement to NBC News today, said President Biden abhors the hateful poison of Nazism, anti-Semitism, and racism, which are hostile to everything the United States stands for.
Well, so this is something we've been talking about over the course of time, and we've talked about, there's hate speech, and I don't even know where we're at legally at a legislative level with hate speech. Apparently those guys were able to do that, and the peers weren't arrested or anything, which I think is definitely preferable. I know people that are so emotionally caught up in this situation of racism and things like this that they can't just logically sit down and have this conversation without losing their fucking minds. But there's been things that I've mentioned, and I've repeated them with I got to look his damn name up. the blues guy that gets the Ku Klux Klan members to leave the Klan. I'm going to look him up. I keep referring to him as the blues guy. He's a black dude. He's got a decent amount of fame around him because of what he's done. The number one thing that he does is listen. That's the first thing he does is listen to all their hateful, crazy shit. And if they're willing to sit there and continue to talk to him, he's able to get them to see the flaws in their logic and eventually able to get through to them to where they finally go, oh, wait a second, what have I been believing in? What have I been doing? This idea that we shouldn't allow these people to say what they're saying, I think is dangerous because you're driving them further underground and I think even solidifying their position further. Instead of giving them an opportunity to be part of a community, part of something, and have a discourse to hopefully change their minds, you're isolating them, ostracizing them, and supposedly punishing them. And I think you're solidifying their hatefulness. I think you're actually fueling that by doing that. Instead of having a discourse of going, hey, why do you believe this? What led you to this point where you think that this is, a logical, best way of approaching life and society and community? How did you arrive here? Because I think if you can get that discourse going, you're going to find myriad of opportunities to point out their contradictions and falsehoods in logic and, setups for deep failure that mindset is going to lead to. So I think, this idea of shut them down, call them all pieces of shit, have that kind of attitude towards it. And I have to say, there's another aspect to that. I don't know if you ever noticed this with certain people who've embraced their kind of villainhood. There's a certain group of people sometimes who have felt like they're not part of community, that they haven't been, they've been ostracized for so long, that they've been a certain way so long, that they will embrace being the villain. Kind of, I don't know how many of you are aware of like a Pazuzu character, a guy who was like a devil worshiper and had this house and ended up killing people and stuff, kind of a somewhat infamous story out there. I think that kind of character comes out of something that this constant ostracization and isolation and condemnation from society and community and groups that then leads to a person then embracing their position of villainhood and then hurling like these insults and condemnation at them. It kind of feeds that in them. Kind of feeds something in them where they're like, it becomes almost what they're looking for to get that energy, because they can't get any positive attention from people. They'll accept negative attention. Right? I think, if maybe you've seen that side of psychology in people. And I think with those folks there that we see, toting this giant flag of the swastika around, and this aggressive, obviously rather dark, almost evil looking costumes that they're wearing, they're embracing that, like, fine, feed us that negative energy, feed us that negative attention, because it's still attention. They still got attention at the end of the day, and so they'll take the negative attention. One way sometimes of dealing with people like this would be to just not even acknowledge them at all, right? That also may have an effect. It might not, because again, isolation is a big part of this, and it might I think it might have an even stronger, possibly negative impact than even the condemnation and the ridicule, depending. I think that's a difficult, that's a topic we could, go into in depth in. But I think the most effective thing to do is engage these people in, hey, tell me what you believe. Like, yeah, explain this whole racist thing to me, and what a genius idea it is. Like, just expound on it to me, and show real interest in listening to that, and then go, hey, what about this part here that you just kind of told me is just so ironclad and such a great idea? Do you think there might be a problem here because X, Y, and Z? And again, I'm not the expert on this. The gentleman who's the blues player who's done a great deal of work in this area has had enormous effect on these folks, but in a big way by going through the listening process and allowing those people to feel heard. They feel heard because these are people who feel upset about their circumstances, about society, and feel impacted in a way that's clearly negative. They feel they've been impacted very negatively. And so they feel like they're not heard. and giving them a voice, but then also saying, hey, maybe you want to consider this after the guard comes down. Because after they're allowed to kind of speak, the guard starts to come down a little bit and they start to go, oh, wow, this person's actually listening to me. And they start to feel a little more welcomed into an interaction scenario, which is what they feel like they're missing anyway. Whether they feel like they're missing it at a financial level, a community level, a government level, a political level, whatever it is, that's what they're feeling. They're feeling isolated. They're feeling held outside of the group. They feel like their life is being impacted negatively, and they don't feel heard about these issues. And so someone giving them that can have a very powerful effect, and I think that's what that gentleman discovered, who's the blues player. So I think the majority of our population here in general in the West, in the United States and all over, have adopted this idea that we should shut them down, condemn them, ostracize them. They're just bad people. These are just shitty people who don't even belong, shouldn't even be in society. Hey, if they died tomorrow, that would be the best for all of us. I think that's extremely the wrong approach, and I think you're actually solidifying their position and giving opportunity for more people to join their ranks. And I think that's a discussion about human sociological impact on psychology. And I think people don't think through this enough to think about the practical aspect. What's the practical solution to the problem? Do you want to see it improve, or do you just want to feel good about yourself and do some sort of, what do they call it? Ethical signaling to the rest of, society about what a great person you are, because you condemn these Nazis. That's just all ego. That's that virtue signaling. That's the word I was looking for. That isn't solving any problems or changing anyone's minds. So I think we've got it really wrong as a society. Biden, of course, I don't know what choice he had because we're living in this society. I think it'd be hard at his leadership role. I guess he could. I mean, shit, he doesn't have a term coming up. He could have dealt with that. He could have dealt with that better. Maybe he could have led the nation in seeing how to change people's minds. But instead, he just did the easy thing and issued a condemnation statement, which is easy, and he moved on. Those people were not his biggest fish to fry that day, that's for sure, right? So sadly, though, that doesn't give the best learning opportunities on how to address people like this. And I think we're perpetuating the problem and even getting worse by thinking that censorship and banning the ability to be able to do what those gentlemen are doing and thinking that solves the problem. It doesn't solve the problem, guys. It creates more of the same problem. All right, anyway, that's really all I have to say about that one.
Don't you think that's the most ridiculous rule out of all the rules?
Well,
the 12 to 6 elbow.
Joe, if it would be up to me, I would allow almost anything, and I would not even make rounds. I think rounds are stupid. You want to see who's the best man? Let them fight, man. Because you see very often that a fight is interrupted by a round, and the momentum shifts like 180 degree completely.
Yes.
And it's not fair. It's a fight. Let them fight.
Yeah. So we've at times, maybe even barely touched on this subject a little bit, but it's not a fight. Let's be clear on this, guys. It's not a fight. It's an athletic competition. Actually, I think maybe in a couple episodes we have talked about this. A fight, a real fight, if we want to have real fights, then we could redo the Roman gladiator situation. And, anything goes. We throw sand in your face, stab you in the back, shoot you with arrows, ultimately poison you. Whatever. If we're going to go to what a real fight is, because what are we talking about? We're talking about simulating something that's real, right? It's a question of what is, what are we trying to do? If we're doing an athletic competition, then that's one thing. If we want to do a true duel to the death where anything goes, and we don't take into consideration injury to the other person, then there shouldn't be any rules on eye poking, groin striking. You shouldn't be allowed to wear a cup. No cups, right? No protective gear whatsoever. And may the best man win. Now, people are going to die. People are going to have horrific injuries. All kinds of things are going to happen under that type of scenario. And we could do that. We could do that. In the feudal Japan, there were duels to the death. Musashi was the greatest duelist of all time, fighting 61 duels to the death. It doesn't appear from the way it was set up there were really too many rules. It was supposed to be one-on-one. You could use any weapon you wanted. I'm pretty sure you could kick dirt in the guy's eye if you wanted to, do anything, because this was to the death. And we could go back to that. And does that prove who the better man is? I guess, maybe. I think it adds a whole different layer when we're allowed death into the equation, when we really allow severe, and more likely injury and permanent types of injuries to be a part of the game. I think you're going to see something different. So I don't know what George St. Pierre is saying there. Like if that's where he wants to head. I don't know. It all starts with Joe Rogan talking about the 12 to 6 o'clock elbow. Why is that a rule? Yeah, I don't know who or what the reasoning was. What is the logic behind certain rules? In some cases, it's probably rather gray. Maybe founded in some sort of emotional idea of some of these moves. I don't know. But yeah, I think what he's saying, I don't know that I think at some point you have to say, well, where do we draw the line? Because at some point you have to draw the line anyway. Otherwise, I find out who my opponent is. I show up at his house before the day of the duel or the fight. I poison his doorknob like a Putin type thing, and he dies before he ever makes it to the event, and I won. Right? We could go that far. We could go to this point where, all right, now what we're going to do is we're going to have some sort of survival of the fittest game where assassination is a legitimate part of the game. Imagine that, guys. That would be crazy, right? And we have the tech now, like here, you have to wear this camera everywhere you're at, right? And the contestants have to wear their cameras, and then, I don't know. And then there's some way that they can't see the other guy's feed, so that all has to be part of some firewall that they have in place. And then you have this elaborate scheme where now we have the real thing. Now we have like CIA level, operative level, murder. Right? I mean, it's just weird that we get into these discussions and then we talk about what's real and what's not real. We're talking about an athletic competition is what we're talking about. We're not talking about life and death, because life and death in the real scale of things has no rules. That's why these mafia guys, they don't look like the most physically fit specimens of combat soldiers that you've ever seen. These guys have huge bellies walking around. You wouldn't even know it. They walk up to you on the street, they shoot you twice in the face, and then you're done. That's why, I just don't understand what that's about there when they start talking about that, because it's like, well, what do you want? Like, where are you going to draw the line then? And why are you feeling like the line isn't drawn far enough? Like, what is it you want? Like, that's fine. And we see that with all kinds of things, right? Like Muay Thai is one thing, and then you got left way. With left way, we can throw, headbutts at people. And is there groin strikes allowed in left way? I think
so.
I
also believe in traditional Muay Thai as well.
Okay, like the Muay Barong?
Yeah, or there was actually a recent fight where a guy kicked him in the nuts and it broke his cup.
Oh, yeah.
And it counted as a TKO for the other guy.
Oof. Yeah.
He won because of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But, again, and that's a specific competition. There's all kinds of different specific competitions. So is your issue, like what with George St. Pierre, is his issue with the government, state law, governments sanctioning fights and deciding what the rules have to be, right? What is his issue with, and what does he want to see? I think that's my question, because when I draw this with broad strokes and look at the whole picture, like I said, it goes to an absolute extreme place that we, if we allowed it, we could go there. if you have problems with it morally and ethically, then that's whatever, that's a different discussion. But just from the discussion of practically looking at this, I mean, what does he want the competition to be about? And it seems like he's, you know, he wants to see who the better man is. But I think that's complicated, you know, with certain rules. Someone who's more athletic and better could lose to someone who's able to eye poke and groin kick and do, you know, illegal moves that aren't legal now. Biting's nasty. Think about the hold downs that happen on the mat during a UFC fight where someone's, you know, on the top game. Imagine if you could bite. The guy's going to have trouble holding you down now, right? Those hold downs aren't going to happen as much. Those ground and pounds are going to be much shorter because now you can bite the guy. So I think the game could change drastically if that's what he wants. You know, we could do all kinds of things that change this game in a major way. So, you know, people could sharpen their nails. I don't think we watched it on here, but Mal Morny, the guy who does the Belladirian, Sufyan Belladiri Silat, he likes to grab people under their arms. Like he grabs under like the skin here and the skin here. Really unpleasant when someone grabs you like that. Imagine if you were like to sharpen your nails and, you know, and grab someone there and rip at the skin. There's just a lot of things you could do that would change this game in a major way, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. I don't know why. I don't know what their debate's about, truthfully, because it's almost like they're not seeing this as a sporting event, and it's absolutely a sporting event, guys. Until we're sniping people from, you know, 800 yards out and poisoning people and actually engaging in the game of life and death, then we're still in a sporting event. So I don't know, you know, I just don't understand the mindset 100%, because you're saying it's not real enough. I mean, I get the point of the rounds, though. You could, if that's really just your only point, like, hey, look how often fights have turned around. And I kind of see his point there, too. Maybe he's not trying to go as far as that. But remember, it starts with Joe Rogan saying that the 12-6 elbow is a problem. And why don't we allow that? It just opens up this huge kind of topic that I'm bringing up. But maybe George St. Pierre is just, his main focus is just like rounds. Like, hey, look how many fights would have been finished with a clear winner on one side, and yet because we had this 1 minute stoppage and then the restarting of another round, that completely changed the tide of the fight. And I agree, that's you know, that's true. But at the same time, then that's part of the game. Why would you then lose to a guy you were just dominating in the round before, and now you start losing to the guy in the next round? Is that psychological, right? Did you sustain some injury in the round before, and now it's starting to, you know, emerge further into the next round? Are you winded further just because now we're going into another round, and for whatever reason your conditioning isn't supporting you as well in that next round? That's all part of the game, though. See, it's a specific game. You're trying to make checkers into chess or something, right? So it's fine, what game do you want to play, but I think there's a psychological component in finishing a round and then having to go back out and fight the same guy. And now he's, you know, got his composure back and his psychology back. Then that's the game. That's just the game you're playing. And if you don't like that game, that's fine. You can change that game and have a different game where that's not a factor, not part of it. But it's a different game with it requiring a different psychological and physical, you know, makeup and components. So I think looking at it from a complaining perspective is, hey, you know, we could complain that, you know, you don't have the same moves in checkers that you have in chess. They're not the same game. So that's kind of what I see there. I just, you know, I don't know what you're trying to prove exactly. Some people might be, you know, better at that psychological game of in between rounds and all this stuff. And hey, then that game's suited for them. The way that they might be better at chess or checkers or you know, the Chinese game of Go or whatever, you know, whatever they're conditioned for and trained for better, then they're going to excel at. But they're all games unless we allow poisoning, sniping, and absolute all-out chaos. Then it's all still a game. Anyway, you know, that would be a good one to have other people comment on and bring more discussion into it. But I think, you know, again, it's just about choosing what game you want to play. There's a lot of different games out there. You can be a boxer, You can do jiu-jitsu tournaments. You can do MMA, clearly. You could do Muay Thai. You could do left way. Maybe there's other circuits of Muay Thai where, pointed out, maybe you can actually kick people in the groin. That's perfectly acceptable. Those are all different games. They're different games. They're not the same game. You can do Savat, you can do that. You could do judo. All of these games have different rules, but none of them are real. That's the part that's stupid, is to say it's real. It's not real. It's not real until you allow me to have a gun and a knife and anything goes, and then we can talk real. So that's at least the way I see it. All right, guys. Well, yeah, that's another good one. Lot of interesting nuance around the topic of dealing with authority. Really great delivery by Sean Reyes in the Long Island Audit. Love the way he does things there. And talking about that nuance of how to get somebody to change their mind, how to get somebody to become more self-aware and more considerate, and understanding that when we place and sprinkle, what I'm using this term sprinkling opportunity for resentment into our delivery, that we get in our own way of effectively getting someone to change their mind, effectively getting someone to become more self-aware, effectively getting someone to become more considerate of others, of societal laws, of whatever it is. And so I think we saw some good nuance around that topic, and it's really central to what this channel is all about, is how can we achieve a better result, not just feel like we won. Not just wanting to win. I've been accused of that by women I've dated. Oh, you don't want to be happy, you want to be right. And that's a powerful statement, because it's like, oh, yeah, but that's a really sticky statement when you get into that conversation, because it's like, yeah, women can be tyrants, men can be too. Women can be really tyrannical around their use of sexuality, their use of their influence within the dynamic of relationships. And so if I allow that, I have to be really careful. And there could be some truth in that statement. There also could be some, hey, I'm standing my ground for a reason, but it's how I stand my ground that's really the important thing. And that delivery method is tricky when you got someone in your face, really trying to push all the buttons they can push, really entitled. I think a lot of us react negatively to an entitled attitude when someone comes at me with entitlement. It's like, who the fuck do you think you are, right? But again, that's where the problem is. That's my own ego, the internal self-ego, and having to manage that first and foremost, so that the message can be delivered in a way that doesn't result in sprinkling of opportunities of resentment. So I think this episode did a good job of pointing to some of that nuance there. And then, of course, this conversation around rules for competitive fighting arenas. I'm sure we could debate that a lot, but I think it really just comes down to what game do you want to play? And you can play Battleship, you can play checkers, you can play chess, you can play Go, you could play War with cards, you could play a lot of different games, and they all have different rules. It just depends on what rules you want. As far as laws are concerned, I'm not a person who believes we should be controlling adults and telling adults what they can and can't do, as long as they aren't going out and taking other people's free will from them by harming them or impacting their safety. If they want to get in the ring and fight to the death, I think we should allow that, to be honest with you. I don't know what the concern is there. Are we concerned that there could be manipulation involved, where people are forced to get in those rings and fight? That would be concerning, for sure. But why wouldn't that be the case now? Like, you have to fight in the UFC, otherwise, you don't have to do that, right? So I don't know. I'm not into protecting adults from themselves. I'm into educating adults. You're going to get into an arena and fight to the death. You know what you're getting yourself into. That was your choice, right? Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. Hopefully not. I don't know if that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing, guys. I don't know if it'd be great if we went back to the Roman Colosseum days. I don't know. I just know that I'm not into protecting adults from making their own choices. I don't know if we should support all-out combat duels to the death either, though. That sounds extreme. So, don't want to put that out there. Anyway, guys, that's it for this one. We'll see you next week. Hey guys, thanks for watching. For long form, you can find us on YouTube and Rumble. For short highlight clips from the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok. Please visit psychedelis.com. You can find all sorts of assets and resources in the psychedelic business space, including retreat centers, clinics, ketamine clinics, individual integration coaches, guides, shamans, you name it. We've also got products, chocolate bars, gummies, spores, blue lotus flower, all kinds of things. Go on and check it out. There's even more than that on there. If you would like more content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to ask a specific question or submit videos for me to react to directly, please email us at ThePemPod@gmail.com. All right, guys.